Straight up. Welcome back to your Way Happy Bible Study. And glory to God. Mountain Dew. Just really, really happy. Okay. We are in chapter 27. Okay. We're starting in Genesis chapter 27, verse 1. And it came to pass that when Isaac was old, and his eyes were dim, so that he could not see, he called Esau his eldest son, and said unto him, My son. And he said unto him, Behold, here am I. Now Isaac is blind at this point. He can't see. In verse 2, and he said, Behold now, I am old. I know not the day of my death. Now therefore take, I pray thee, thy weapons, thy quiver. The quiver is the pouch for the arrows, and thy bow, and go out to the field and take me some venison, kill me a deer. In verse 4, and make me savory meat, such as I love, and bring it to me, that I may eat, that my soul may bless thee before I die. So Isaac has every intention of giving the blessing, the Abrahamic blessing, passing it on to Esau. But that is not the will of God. In verse 5, and Rebekah heard when Isaac spake to Esau his son. And Esau went to the field to hunt for venison and to bring it. Now, Rebekah knows that it is the will of God that the elder shall serve the younger, that the younger inherit the blessing. And so she takes measures to make it happen. In verse 6, and Rebekah spake unto Jacob her son, saying, Behold, I heard thy father speak unto Esau thy brother, saying, Bring me venison and make me savory meat, that I may eat and bless thee before the Lord before my death. In verse 8, Now therefore, my son, obey my voice according to that which I command thee. She's telling him, do what I tell you. In verse 9, Now go to the flock and fetch me from thence 2 good kids of the goats, and I will make them savory meat for thy father, such as he loveth. So evidently, Isaac can't tell the difference between venison and goat. If it's all he's thinking about is that it's tender and tastes good to him. In verse 10, and thou shalt bring it to thy father, that he may eat and that he may bless thee before his death. And Jacob said to Rebekah his mother, Behold, Esau my brother is a hairy man, and I am a smooth man. In verse 12, Jacob's saying, Mom, this is not going to work. In verse 12, my father peradventure will feel me, and I shall seem to him as a deceiver, and I shall bring a curse upon me and not a blessing. In verse 13, and his mother said unto him, Upon me be thy curse, my son. Only obey my voice and go fetch me them. In verse 14, and he went and fetched and brought them to his mother, and his mother made savory meats such as his father loved. And Rebekah took goodly raiment of her eldest son Esau, which were with her in the house, and put them upon Jacob, her younger son. So Jacob would smell like Esau to his blind father Isaac. And she put the skins of the kids of the goats upon his hands and upon the smooth of his neck. And she gave the savory meat and the bread which she had prepared into the hand of her son Jacob. And he came unto his father and said, My father. And he said, Here am I. Who art thou, my son? In verse 19, and Jacob said unto his father, I am Esau, thy firstborn. I have done according as thou badest me. Arise, I pray thee, sit and eat of my venison, that thy soul may bless me. In verse 20, and Isaac said unto his son, How is it that thou hast found it so quickly, my son? And he said, Because the Lord thy God brought it to me. In verse 21, and Isaac said unto Jacob, Come near, I pray thee, that I may feel thee, my son, whether thou be my very son Esau or not. Because he can hear that the voice is Jacob. In verse 22, and Jacob went near unto Isaac his father, and he felt him. Remember, he's blind. And he said, The voice is Jacob's voice, but the hands are the hands of Esau. So he knows it's Jacob's voice, but he's confused because he feels the hairiness on the arms, and he discerned him not, because his hands were hairy as his brother Esau's hands. So he blessed him. And he said, Art thou my very son Esau? And he said, I am. Wreakage, huh? Jacob's having to lie to obey his mother. And he said, Bring it near to me, and I will eat of my son's venison, that my soul may bless thee. And he brought it near to him, and he did eat. And he brought him wine, and he drank. In verse 26, and his father Isaac said unto him, Come near now, and kiss me, my son. He wants to smell him. In verse 27, and he came near and kissed him. And he smelled the smell of his raiment and blessed him and said, See, the smell of my son is as the smell of a field which the Lord hath blessed. In verse 28, Therefore God give thee of the dew of heaven and the fatness of the earth and plenty of corn and wine. Let people serve thee and nations bow down to thee. Be Lord over thy brethren, and let thy mother's sons bow down to thee. Cursed be every one that curseth thee, and blessed be he that blesseth thee. And it came to pass, as soon as Isaac had made an end of blessing Jacob, and Jacob was yet scarce gone out from the presence of Isaac his father, that Esau his brother came in from his hunting. In verse 31, and he also had made savory meat, and brought it unto his father, and said unto his father, Let my father arise and eat of his son's venison, that thy soul may bless me. And Isaac his father said unto him, Who art thou? And he said, I am thy son, thy firstborn Esau. And Isaac trembled very exceedingly, because he realized that he had given away the blessing, and it wasn't to Esau. Isaac trembled very exceedingly and said, Who? Where is he that hath taken venison and brought it me? And I have eaten of all before thou camest, and have blessed him. Yea, and he shall be blessed. And when Esau heard the words of his father, he cried with a great and exceeding bitter cry, and said unto his father, Bless me, even me also, O my father. And he said, Thy brother came with subtlety and deception, see, and hath taken away thy blessing. In verse 36, and he said, Is not he rightly named Jacob? For he hath supplanted me these 2 times. He took away my birthright, and now behold, he hath taken away my blessing. And he said, Hast thou not reserved a blessing for me? And Isaac answered and said unto Esau, Behold, I have made him thy Lord, and all his brethren have I given to him for servants, and with corn and wine have I sustained him. And what shall I do now unto thee, my son? In verse 38 of Genesis 27. And Esau said unto his father, Hast thou but one blessing, my father? Bless me, even me also, O my father. And Esau lifted up his voice and wept. And Isaac his father answered and said unto him, Behold, thy dwelling shall be the fatness of the earth, and of the dew of heaven from above. And by thy sword shalt thou live, and serve thy brother, and shalt serve thy brother. And it shall come to pass, when thou shalt have the dominion, that thou shalt break his yoke from off thy neck. In verse 41, and Esau hated Jacob, because of the blessing wherewith his father blessed him. And Esau said in his heart, The days of mourning for my father are at hand. Then will I slay my brother Jacob. See, he is born without the temple, just like Cain. And it's no different than Cain and Abel at this point. In verse 42, and these words of Esau, her elder son, were told to Rebekah. And she sent and called Jacob, her younger son, and said unto him, Behold, thy brother Esau, as touching thee, doth comfort himself, purposing to kill thee. In verse 43, Now therefore, my son, obey my voice and arise. Flee thou to Laban, my brother, to Haran, and tarry with him a few days, until thy brother's fury turn away, until thy brother's anger turn away from thee, and he forget that which thou hast done to him. Then I will send and fetch thee from thence. Why should I be deprived also of you both in one day? In verse 46, and Rebekah said to Isaac, I am weary of my life because of the daughters of Heth. If Jacob take a wife of the daughters of Heth, such as these which are of the daughters of the land, what good shall my life do me? Because Isaac and Rebekah, neither one liked the fact that Esau took 2 Canaanite wives. In chapter 28, verse 1, let's just keep going. And Isaac called Jacob and blessed him, and charged him and said unto him, Thou shalt not take a wife of the daughters of Canaan. Arise, go to Padan Aram, to the house of Bethuel thy mother's father, and take thee a wife from thence of the daughters of Laban, thy mother's brother. And God Almighty bless thee, and make thee fruitful, and multiply thee, that thou mayest be a multitude of people. And maybe you're thinking, well, wow, why isn't Isaac angry with Jacob? And I figure, we're just kind of having to read between the lines here. I figure Rebekah came to Isaac and told him what she did. In verse 4, and give thee the blessing of Abraham to thee and to thy seed with thee, and thou mayest inherit the land wherein thou art a stranger, which God gave unto Abraham. And Isaac sent away Jacob, and he went to Padan Aram, unto Laban, son of Bethuel the Syrian, the brother of Rebekah, Jacob and Esau's mother. When Esau saw that Isaac had blessed Jacob and sent him away to Padan Aram to take him a wife from thence, and that as he blessed him, he gave him a charge, saying, Thou shalt not take a wife of the daughters of Canaan. And that Jacob obeyed his father and his mother, and was gone to Padan Aram. And Esau, seeing that the daughters of Canaan pleased not Isaac his father, then went Esau unto Ishmael, and took unto the wives which he had Mahalath, the daughter of Ishmael, Abraham's son, the sister of Nebajoth, to be his wife. So Esau is recognizing that his Canaanite wives have cost him this blessing. So now he's like, well, I better have a wife of a little better quality. So then he goes and he takes a wife of one of the daughters of Ishmael. And Jacob went out from Beersheba and went toward Haran. And he lighted upon a certain place and tarried there all night, because the sun was set. And he took of the stones of that place and put them for his pillows, and lay down in that place to sleep. In verse 12 of Genesis 28, and he dreamed, and behold, a ladder set up on the earth, and the top of it reached to heaven. And behold, the angels of God ascending and descending on it. Do you see that? This is what is known as Jacob's ladder. So notice that one again. And he dreamed, and behold, a ladder set up on the earth. He's having this dream, and he sees a ladder that reaches up to the heavens. It says, and the top of it reached to heaven. And behold, the angels of God ascending and descending on it. In verse 13, and behold, the Lord stood above it, and said, I am the Lord God of Abraham thy father, and the God of Isaac. The land whereon thou liest, to thee will I give it, and to thy seed. In verse 14, and thy seed shall be as the dust of the earth, and thou shalt spread abroad to the west, and to the east, and to the north, and to the south. And in thee and in thy seed shall all the families of the earth be blessed. In verse 15 of Genesis chapter 28, and behold, I am with thee, and will keep thee in all places whither thou goest, and will bring thee again into this land. For I will not leave thee until I have done that which I have spoken to thee of. In verse 16, and Jacob awaked out of his sleep, and he said, Surely the Lord is in this place, and I knew it not. In verse 17, and he was afraid and said, How dreadful is this place! This is none other but the house of God, and this is the gate of heaven. Wow. So the gate of heaven is right there at Bethel. Isn't that interesting? And Jacob rose up early in the morning, and took the stone that he had put for his pillows, and set it up for a pillar, and poured oil upon the top of it. And he called the name of that place Bethel. But the name of that city was called Luz at the first. In verse 20, and Jacob vowed a vow, saying, If God will be with me, and will keep me in this way that I go, and will give me bread to eat and raiment to put on, so that I come again to my father's house in peace, then shall the Lord be my God. In verse 22, and this stone which I have set for a pillar shall be God's house, and of all that thou shalt give me, I will surely give the tenth unto thee. Now see, Abraham paid the tenth unto Melchizedek, and Isaac is vowing to continue giving the tenth of his increase unto the Lord. In chapter 29 and verse 1, then Jacob went on his journey and came into the land of the people of the east. And he looked, and behold, a well in the field, and lo, there were 3 flocks of sheep lying by it. For out of that well they watered the flocks, and a great stone was upon the well's mouth. And thither were all the flocks gathered. And they rolled the stone from the well's mouth, and watered the sheep, and put the stone again upon the well's mouth in his place. And Jacob said unto them, My brethren, whence be ye? And they said, Of Haran are we. And he said unto them, Know ye Laban the son of Nahor? And they said, We know him. And he said unto them, Is he well? And they said, He is well. And behold, Rachel his daughter cometh with the sheep. In verse 7, and he said, Lo, it is yet high day, neither is it time that the cattle should be gathered together. Water ye the sheep, and go and feed them. And they said, We cannot, until all the flocks be gathered together, until they roll the stone from the well's mouth, then we water the sheep. So they put this really heavy stone over the top of the well, to where none of the shepherds could move it themselves. They had to all wait until they were all gathered, and then it took all of them to move the stone. In verse 9 of chapter 29 of Genesis, and while he yet spake with them, Rachel came with her father's sheep, for she kept them. And it came to pass, when Jacob saw Rachel, the daughter of Laban his mother's brother, and the sheep of Laban his mother's brother, that Jacob went near and rolled the stone from the well's mouth, and watered the flock of Laban his mother's brother. So Jacob was very smart and savvy. He was able to remove the stone from the well himself without any help from the rest. And he was, I'm sure it wasn't brute strength, it was ingenuity. He was just really smart and was able to figure out how to do it himself. In verse 11, and Jacob kissed Rachel and lifted up his voice and wept. And Jacob told Rachel that he was her father's brother, and that he was Rebekah's son. And she ran and told her father. And it came to pass, when Laban heard the tidings of Jacob his sister's son, that he ran to meet him, and embraced him, and kissed him, and brought him to his house, and he told Laban all these things. And Laban said to him, Surely thou art my bone and my flesh. And he abode with him the space of a month. In verse 15, and Laban said unto Jacob, Because thou art my brother, shouldest thou therefore serve me for naught, for nothing? Tell me, what shall thy wages be? In verse 16, and Laban had 2 daughters. The name of the elder was Leah, and the name of the younger was Rachel. In verse 17, Leah was tender-eyed, but Rachel was beautiful and well-favored. Now, tender-eyed, I'm not sure what that means. Let's see if we can find a reference. Tender-eyed means having gentle or weak eyes. Let's see. Leah, whose name signifies languor, weariness, had dull, bleared eyes. Probably she suffered, as so many do in that hot, sandy climate. It detracted from her beauty, and evidently. Because it says Leah had weak eyes, but Rachel was lovely in form and beautiful. So, Leah was tender, in verse 17 of chapter 29 in Genesis, Leah was tender-eyed, but Rachel was beautiful and well-favored. In verse 18, and Jacob loved Rachel and said, I will serve thee 7 years for Rachel, thy younger daughter. And Laban said, it is better that I give her to thee than that I should give her to another man. Abide with me. And Jacob served 7 years for Rachel. And they seemed unto him but a few days, for the love he had to her. In verse 21, and Jacob said unto Laban, give me my wife, for my days are fulfilled that I may go in unto her. In verse 22, and Laban gathered together all the men of the place and made a feast. And it came to pass in the evening that he took Leah his daughter and brought her to him, and he went in unto her. Now their custom was that the bride was fully covered when she married. He married a woman standing there totally covered that he couldn't see who she was. And then their custom also was that when the marriage was consummated, she was still covered. Her head and her face and everything was covered. And so Jacob lay with her without knowing that it was Leah. Okay? So try to imagine this. In verse 24, and Laban gave unto his daughter Leah Zilpah his maid for a handmaid. Okay, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll start in Genesis 29, verse 25. Straight up.